So yeah, so you got a new guru, right, Steve? A new guru.
Well, as we both know, he resists that travel. So yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, I don't go to the Facebook groups anymore. They became kind of passé in my book. But occasionally, Dana Ross will write something, and it'll show up in my Facebook notifications, or whatever it is. So I'll find out. Oh, he wrote it on what is it? Fourth Dimension, Jan Cox Fourth Dimension, or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, working science. Right?
Yeah, right, that one. And I discovered a few months ago, I guess, that you were just kind of monopolizing the whole wall, and that's cool. And you'd get occasional clicks and likes and attaboys and shit like that from Derek and Richard Hall and what always was curious to me, and it still is. I don't care for a response, but it's still curious as hell. I was involved with these dudes from '86 on to the time that he died in '05, and I lived there for 3 years, and there were 150 people that showed up every single night. Monday, Wednesday, Friday without fail. 150 or so, and there was probably 500 out in the burbs, L.A., which is where I first found it, and 15, 20 people there, 60 people here, 10 people there, and so they send out the tapes. So you've got all this conglomeration of people, right? I'd say maybe 500 total, 100 in Atlanta, and then spread out. And I know that 95% of them who were regulars were, let's just say, impressed. Let's just say that because they kept participating on a regular basis without fail. And then up to the end, for those that hung around, that was 13 years ago, almost 14 years ago, when he died. In November it'll be 14, I guess. And after all this time, these hundreds of people who no longer have their favorite guru, right? Of all these people, not one emerged out of the level that was raised up by his presence. Not one raised up and, signify by saying, I have something to say, I have something to speak about, I have something to do on a regular basis like my favorite friend Jan used to do, or like what happened after Gurdjieff died and Ouspensky died. A whole bunch of them sprang up, right? Shit, man. A whole bunch of them sprang up and became the new guru. Huh? And they have a little following. But I can name 15 people on my left hand who, were so impressed by the being of Georgy Porgy or Peter Ouspensky that they felt compelled to regurgitate either their take on the teaching, spin it a little bit, but always giving credit to Gurdjieff or Ouspensky, or who actually branched out and became a new thought on planet Earth. Not very many do that. You ever notice? Not very many. It's always the guy is on the planet and he teaches all these people how to think and speak the word, and then he dies, and for the next 10, 15, 150, 200 years, that's the end. All right? All you get after that are transcripts of old meetings or people writing books about the transcripts from the old meetings who never set foot in the room and never had a conversation with the guy. So they're not even, it's not even hearsay, third order hearsay, right? How can you believe such and such a person who, only thing he knows about Gurdjieff is that he read a book by somebody who said he was taught by somebody who apparently said that he was actually at the priory, or whatever, however you pronounce it, right? Priory? Back in the day. So, right? So you get.
But see, to me, that's the special attraction to this material, is that it's actually still available. You can see the words coming out of his mouth on these tapes. You can see his body movements, his gestures.
Oh, of course, of course. I'm not minimizing that. I'm really only talking. I'm not talking about the quality or the worth of what he did. I'm talking about how interesting it is to me that after 13 years, I really only know of one person, and I know everybody that was there at the end. I mean, you know, not that I know them so well that they're going to keep up with me, but I know one thing for sure. We've been on the internet since, I have, since 97, 96, and so I know how to use it. And if anybody's out there doing their own thing, their own rap on quote-unquote this thing, and is actually putting something out there into the world, either because they were an offshoot from Jan or Atlanta and left early and decided to do their own thing, or they stayed to the end and now they're just been ruminating for the last 13 years. Where are they? That's my question. Where are they? Did they just not get created? Or did they understand, okay, I was involved in this thing up to and including the last day of his time on Earth. I'll take a few years off to kind of, you know, shut up, settle into what I've become after all this time and all this whatever. And I'll just kind of wait until, you know, it overtakes me. That's something from within that overtook Jan, because it definitely, something overtook Jan such that he felt the need to, on a regular basis, show up someplace in a space, in a location, and by doing that, he attracted people around him who gave him the proper feedback so that he could continue it for 30-some plus years. That's miraculous in a certain way. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you can count on one hand how many people you can tell that story about. That regular, that long.
I know, actually, and how many, you know, it took me a long time to pry information out of you about who the hell this guy was to begin with. It really took me quite a long time to pry that.
Well, I've always been willing to talk about it because, I mean, I always said...
You talked about, yeah, you talked about this, but you really were reluctant to reference Jan's name.
Yeah, and I still don't. I still don't. And I'm also kind of surprised about... How you doing there? You need some water. I need some water too. I'll just go get some.
Hold on a second, I gotta go let the dog in anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Say what?
Okay, I'm back. Better go get the dog.
Oh yeah. So you know, I'm an open book, but I don't make claims about being part of that phenomenon, that Atlanta Jan Cox group phenomenon. I don't claim it. So, but my interest is, I sort of took the other tack. In '95, when he died, of course I was doing this before that because I had a different level of being then, but since about 1998, I was already trying to spin what I was hearing. I was already doing it to some degree. And then it really ramped up in about 2001, where I started several blogs, several, Yahoo groups. You were on several, I was. So where you would just come on there to talk to people, to introduce topics, that were tightly, tight enough so that they could be discussed. I mean, you don't want to just, talk too long, because then nobody can find a place to respond. So ask a question, specific question, or make a specific point about something and see what kind of conversation develops as a result of something that's got stimulated in their own brain. And then what do? What do we do? You hear something that stimulates something in your own brain, then what happens? Okay? Fred, Joe, what happens when you suddenly hear something that gets some neural firings in your own brain? There it is. It's cooking. The guy's still talking, but it's cooking in your own brain, and then suddenly there's a silence, and you find, oh, this is a place where I can respond, I can reply, I can say something. And then, okay, so the question is, so what happened then, Fred? Not what you said. That's not of any interest or importance. What happened inside of your brain that caused all of these cascading circumstances within your own body, such that your hand reaches for the keyboard, and you start typing like a crazy man, or you grab the mic and you say, I got a thing or two to say about that, and then your brain starts flowing out with this thing that you think you've been thinking. Okay? Now, I've got another take on this. Not that I called you to tell it to you, but I got another take on this. People don't do that. They don't do that. What's important to all people is they're just sitting back, relaxing, having a smoke, drinking some water, whatever, and then they see something on the TV set or whatever, and it stimulates some thought in their own brain, and then they find themselves identified almost immediately and going with the stream of thought that is now occurring in them, and they're partially aware of the thoughts that they're having, and they may even, feel that, well, that was an interesting set of few thoughts. I think I'll write them all down, and maybe I'll talk to my friend Jill the next time I call her about this interesting idea I had, and but what's going on in the guy's brain that made that happen? He doesn't know. You can ask him, you can put a mic to his face and say, how is it that you were able to do that, Fred? You heard one little thing, sentence, fragment, whatever it was, you saw something, whatever it was, and then suddenly a part of your brain lit up, and for the next 2 or 3 minutes you were having these crazy thoughts that all sounded clever and interesting, and you liked them, and so that motivated you to go to the keyboard or pick up the phone and tell somebody, and now you spent the next 25 minutes or 25 years waxing prolific on your idea of what's going on, but not one set of thoughts come out of your organism on the more important topic is, how is it that, answer this question, Steve, as best you can. How is it that Jan Cox, starting back in the early 80s, was motivated or able to stand up in front of friends, because they were not strangers. He didn't attract strangers. That's not how it got started. It was just friends who were ruminating on interesting ideas: time, space, man, being, love, hate, all the ideas. It's just friends. And then what happened? It just came that Jan was more able to do something in particular that none of them were able to do, and when he did it, they became able to do it. When he did it, and they were in the room hearing and seeing, it was kind of almost like he was teaching their organism how to do the same thing he was doing, which was, how does he stand up for an hour and speak extemporaneously for a whole hour, carrying multiple threads along parallel together, such that at the end there's a climax and he says it's 60 minutes are up, it's time to go, and he hangs up, and then he just goes off with the rest of his life. Everybody else goes off with the rest of their life until 48 hours later he's back doing it again. There's something going on here and nobody sees it. No, he saw it, but nobody else sees it. I would say that this is what I see. He didn't know any of this shit Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon of the first meeting, he didn't know what he was going to talk about. But he knew how to do something in his own brain, which was kind of like, well, first you got to go out and get kindling, and then you make a little fire pit, but you get the proper kindling, and then you get the thing prepared so that when you light a match to it, the thing will burst into a small flame, at which point you have to blow on it before you can get the flame actually working, so that, finally, after 5 minutes or so, you actually have teaching coming out, speaking the word. The word comes out of everybody. Nobody knows how to speak the word. All that comes out of people is words. They're just talking words. Talking words is a totally different thing than speaking the word. Jan and others, but he more than anybody that I've ever seen, as it were, invented the concepts in real time. As he spoke about them, as he constructed sentences to as it were, wrap words that could be heard, wrap words around new understanding that was being created within him in real time, and he knows and was teaching people how to wrap their own dictionary words. It's just a dictionary full of words. The whole dictionary of words is in your brain, but people don't know how to gather words up in such a way that they can properly and adequately clothe their highest and deepest comprehension of life on earth in a human being. What is life on earth in a human being? Well, I don't fucking know. Go read a Bible. No. What does it mean to be a human?
Well, the thing that strikes me about Jan, and just to say a few words here, and you're so much more understandable now that I've spent some time with Jan, by the way. But I'll tell you this, not waking up every day with a big plan of what I'm going to do, that's part of what I find in this. Realizing that I don't know what I'm going to say next, that's part of this. Looking at repetition, and for the public, not repeating myself, that's part of this. It's part of this to be surprised and delighted. There's so much information that he passed along, and yet I'm just struck by some of the things that no one notices about him too, or at least no one seems to overtly notice. Some of the ways that he speaks, some of the ways that he makes gestures and his facial movements, and his continuing emphasis on the fact that no one would give a fuck if he wasn't entertaining. That's true too. I don't know. It's just to me. And getting out every day, like you suggest, and getting some physical exercise. That's not an easy thing for me to do. Like a lot of people, I'd rather just sit by the computer most days and do nothing but making that effort to get out and do the walking and spend a half an hour and try not to be verbally daydreaming and things like this. So I'm finding a lot of use of practical, tasks and things that seem to find a usefulness in me and a profit, as you would put it. So I'm very glad I finally found this place, and it's a place that I think, and just from my own perspective, that I can work. And the work that I'm doing is simply working for the so-called school, college school. I don't know if he's a guru or not, because he keeps claiming he's not. He doesn't want to be. And that's fine too. I understand why he says that. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't really understand the need for the guru at this point in time. And maybe it's like he says that I'm just sort of following along from some of the things he's mentioned, some of the answers. Maybe it took me all this time to have lived a certain amount of time in this life in this physical environment to get to the point where I could actually hear some of what he has been saying. And yes, it's very surprising, and especially the most important thing that I think I've learned to very much appreciate is to talk about the voices, the two voices, the overt voice, the one that we all think is just us, and that little murmuring voice that's sort of like emotional center trying to speak, like, oh, I'm not happy, oh, my body hurts, that little murmuring voice, the one that is always complaining about, well, this is fucked up, why do I have to do this? That voice. So, anyway, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and yet I run across these very interesting spots about to get more dangerous, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. And this is before you even got there, apparently. If you came in 86, I'm still in 85. Still in 85. And he keeps saying, this Thursday night stuff, it may not last much longer because it seems to be less and less profitable. Because I've got too many people that are just sitting here thinking that I'm passing along a bunch of interesting information that doesn't seem to go anywhere, but sure is entertaining, and by golly, I'll just keep doing that. That's what he was fighting against, the people that wanted to just fill up and just be slightly amused by his commentaries on things. And the people that wanted to experience what he was talking about, who wants to go out into the world and do. Anyway, I'm glad.
Well, here's one thing that he made a big deal about, and it's all throughout, but he stopped saying it after a while because he didn't have to say it anymore. One was everything that occurs in the room during the evening stays in the room, period. And everything that gets into your head during that period of time in the room stays in your head. Don't talk about Jan or anything about the work or anything about what he talked about. He made that a very big deal, and it's very clear and understandable once you hear it being said. Now, maybe you need to hear it from him when you get to it, but I got it instantaneously, only because, it's genetic. Who knows? I got it instantaneously. It's kind of like this, for me. Now, not for you, but for me. It's kind of like this. Out in the world where I think reality exists, out in the world where I used to go to work and take care of my car and drive around and blah, 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 go to the grocery store. All the things that go on out there were of a different dimension. that world is a different dimension. Then I find a poster on the wall or whatever. There was different mechanisms that brought people into a meeting the first time. But you know yours, I know mine. So now they find the address of this place in their brain, which they don't know it's a place in their brain yet, but it is. They think it's an address on a street or a URL where they can go for videos. That's what they think, okay? But remember, I mean, taking this metaphor, just, literally, almost take the metaphor literally. People come to these kind of ideas in the ordinary dimension of the 3D world of ordinary humanity, where everything that's going on, according to them, for the most part, exists in the outside world. Then they have an opportunity, once in a while a person catches it, has an opportunity to find somebody who knows more than that, which is, no, there's no out there. You think you're living in the out there. You don't live in the out there. You live in the in here, okay? Now, you don't know anything about the in here because you just met me, okay? Now, I'm going to spend the next 30 years of my life helping you to illuminate the internal world, your own internal world. I'll tell you one thing, Jan Cox is not in that internal world. Jan Cox is not in that internal world that you are in the process of illuminating, any more than George Gurdjieff is. There's nobody in that internal world. It hasn't been illuminated yet. But it starts to get illuminated. And then you start, this happens very quickly for most people, I believe. Those that stay. For most people, it happens very quickly. For the rest, they don't stay. They find some other attraction. But for those who get it, they get it quickly. And then they're hooked, as it were. But they're not hooked on Jan or the teaching. They're hooked on illuminating their internal world. And what you find out is kind of like, okay, here it is. It's Monday afternoon. A meeting's happening at 8 o'clock. It's about 5 o'clock now. I've got to get eaten. I got to take care of my pets. I got to do my little chores. But then about 7:30, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to drive over there. Are you healthy? Are you 100% healthy? In general. You don't have any...
Oh, yeah, I'm actually 100% healthy.
You don't have any Jim Probe issues or anything like that, right?
Not that I know of.
So, just a little hay fever or something. Okay, so eventually you get to I think everybody kind of got to the emotional state of affairs that their ordinary world was out here, and then they would go to the meeting place and, as it were, step into a higher plane. Okay, another world, a higher plane, in which what is going on there was of a higher order of experience than they're normally akin to, and their attention is forcefully directed in a way that is unnormal in the outside world. Even at a baseball game or a concert, or a very interesting speaker on a stage, those people are still looking around at all the girls, and the girls are looking at the guys, and we're taking in the ambiance. And there's a lot of this fragmentation of focus and attention. But you show up in a meeting of somebody that you've already become hooked on because you know what he's doing. He's teaching, he's speaking the word, teaching the word, and showing you how he does it. How does he do a meeting?
Right.
He's teaching people by them shutting up and listening and not...
And then he demonstrates.
He's demonstrating the moves, and the work that he's going through is the creation of the teaching. It didn't happen before he showed up, and the recommendation, which was stronger than a recommendation, it was like a, do this or else kind of thing, ultimatum, was Don't mention his name ever to anyone. And if you want to say your friend, that's fine, but you don't talk about him. You don't say anything about him. And you don't mention any of the goings and comings and goings in the room, the discussions, the ideas, none of it. You don't do any of that. Just shut up. And that might mean for years and years and years. Don't go home and try to transcribe the meeting. Don't go home and try to, post it on a Facebook page. Forget all that.
Yeah.
None of that stuff is necessary. Nobody else wants to read it. They've already done their own work. So now what's happening in you then is, as it were, in not you personally, but you, the newbie in the teaching, his teaching, is you're not trying to actively figure out how is it, what is he, you're not trying to figure out what he's doing. You just want to be there when he does it. I don't need to know what he's doing. I need to be there when he does it. Open-minded, focused, aware, conscious of self, consciousness of consciousness in the moment when this thing occurs. And just the hearing of it will, in effect, like music, if you go to a concert of certain kind of music, you can just sit down in your chair, the lights go down, the music begins, and you're rapt, right? You're enraptured almost by the flow of sounds coming at you. And it's just more than most people can take. They get fidgety sometimes or whatever, but for those that know how to pay attention during, a concert, or not even, I'm not talking about rock and roll, but, classical, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. Classical is very, easy to, experience this. You just you're transported into another realm, and the music plays you like a fiddle. And you discover things that you can't even describe until much later. It's like it is teaching you how to be more conscious. So the so-called teaching that he invents in real time, he didn't know what he was going to say, so he just showed up and started talking, building the fire, getting it bigger, and then the fire goes out into the room, people take it all in, and they are changed thereby. He changed the people. They didn't, in effect, have to do anything. Just show up and learn how to do one thing only. Pay attention when it's happening in real time. When it's happening in real time, pay attention. And then when the tape finishes, shut the room, close the door. Close the door on that place in you. That is the part that's enlightening. That part grows on its own. You can't help it grow. You can only tear it down. It grows on a day-by-day basis. It gets brighter. But the ordinary world, the life of, Bob and Fred and Mary and Jane, when you
Fred
leave,
Mary, okay, Fred Mary.
when you leave the room, you're stepping back into a lower dimension. It's the ordinary world. You live in the ordinary world. You were born and raised and have your house and your car and your job in that ordinary world. But when you come here and you move into that place in your brain and open it up, open the door, you open the door to the location in Atlanta, you open the door, and you're also opening the door to that place in your brain, that place in you that has become illuminated. Unlike it was prior to meeting this, and that place is now going to become more and more illuminated the more you are present to what is happening. It's kind of almost, to me, it's almost a mystical thing. I mean, stepping out of one plane of existence while on Earth into a higher plane of existence while still on Earth, and yet what is going on in the room is pulling everybody up, almost like pulling everybody up who can be present to it, pulling everybody up by their own bootstraps. You don't have to do anything. You just have to keep from doing something. You keep from doing something like holding back an orgasm. You know, that whole sexual tantric thing. Hold back your desire to orgasm so much, and just keep the energy contained in you, and maybe even don't orgasm. I mean, that's part of the tantric thing. You just don't orgasm. You take yourself as hot.
You just touched on something that I wanted to sort of highlight just quickly, and it's the power of the word no. I decline. I walk away. I refuse.
Yes.
Those things are not to be underestimated, because it's so easy to add too much. And I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but
what do you mean? Don't ask me that. Don't ask me that. Don't ask me.
Okay, well, I'm not asking you that. It's a rhetorical question for myself. And it's like, I've noticed that just walking away from my own verbiage, walking away from the little talk that goes on inside me, that's enough. It's so easy for someone to lay too much on things, to lay too much analysis on the situation, to understand too little, but try to understand too much. Just stop. Just be quiet. Just to cut down on the internal dialogue a bit. It's just wonderful to know that I have some tools that make that possible all of a sudden. The most practical guy that I ever met in my life was Jack Cox, honestly.
Well,
But it's not a guru.
don't get hung up on my use of the term guru. I don't think he's anybody's guru either. If there is a guru at all, it's somebody that can, as it were, go live their life going from place to place, and when they need some inner conscious being to appear, it doesn't appear out there, it appears in you. So you are feeding your own inner guru, such that, come on, Steve, how long is it going to take before you close the book on Jan Cox? How long is it going to take? Is it going to take 25 more years? Is it going to take 10 more years? I know it's entertaining, but forget the entertainment aspect of Mr. Cox. I mean, forget it. Yeah, he's entertaining. A lot of people are entertaining. And great truths can be communicated via entertainment, as we all know, and various other methods that are used by people. But how long is it going to be before you discover, wait a minute, let me get this straight here. You mean to tell me that he is me and I am him? Wait a minute. You mean to tell me all this clever outspeaking is what I'm already capable of doing? So why am I sitting in front of a mirror waiting for the mirror to talk to me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night? Because that's all it's doing. The mirror is talking to you. Now, how silly is this anyway? I mean, how long is it going to take for you to realize the reflection in the mirror is not Jan Cox over a video screen coming through your computer? It's you. Still unaware that that meeting is just as possible to have been invented in your own brain for your own set purposes, your own, and that he's not telling people that which they don't already know. Because what they already know is, here's what they already know. Were you born As a human being, yes, I was. Okay, you know that. You came with no language, just the ability to know language, to learn it and to know it, and your parents taught you that. So you know that much. You know you're alive. You know you're in a human body which has a brain, and that brain has the capacity to learn unlimited number of languages. You know that, and you learned the language. You didn't do that on purpose. You didn't go out and learn a language. The language was taught to you. So now you've got this language. All the words in the English language that you need probably could fill, one chapter in any book. I mean, how many words does a person need? Come on. 5,000 words to describe snow. I mean, come on, man. I mean, 5 or 10 words for snow would be sufficient. But, okay, so that's what the brain does. But, stifle, brain, come on here. We only need about 50 words. Everything that needs to be told to another sleeping human to wake them up could be described in 50 words. If you know what the 50 words are, and you know how to speak to people, any person, whoever's in front of you, that person is a prototype of all people. You can speak the same 50 words to anybody and it'll wake them up if you use the right 50 words. Which 50 words? How long is it going to take for a person to realize, okay, I met George Gurdjieff and I was really intrigued by the fact that he could write a 3-page long sentence with one period. Oh, that was interesting. And I was intrigued by this, that, and the other. There's so many things you can say about George Gurdjieff. It's just mind-blowing. But what did he really come down to say? I mean, really, when you come right down to it, boil it all down to what was going on with the people that followed George Gurdjieff for 25 years. Why did it take them so long? That's a mystery. No follower can answer that, especially one that's been there for 25 years. Why have you been there so long? I mean, how come it took you so long to figure out what was going on here such that you could walk away and never have to fall back into the old paradigms? The goal here is to, how soon, okay, it's almost like this. How long does it take a newbie to become a strict follower to become an enlightened being who can then walk away? How long does it take you to walk away? Okay, that's the goal. The goal is not to get stuck in that old paradigm. The goal is to find out what does it take to walk away, and then walk away and not turn around. There's no reason to turn around and talk about Jan Cox. I mean, think about it. And I'm not berating you, I'm just berating the whole notion. Why are so many Jan Cox, Dana Ross, okay, Derek Hardison, Richard Hall, the various people that I know, every time you put something up there, you check the likes and you drop down who saw it, and you go, well, John Gettinger saw it, and such and such a girl saw it, and you keep track of all this, you know you do. And if somebody decides to reply, you'll read the reply because you put it up there, so you will read the reply. Right? I mean, it's human nature. That's why they wrote Facebook, to give you emotional feedback so that I'd keep you coming back. So, but anyway, the point is, it just surprises me. I asked Bob Moore, you ever heard of Carlos Duas? I mentioned Carlos Duas to you years ago when we did Hangouts, but he's the only guy that actually decided to leave the group. Not the only guy that left, but the only one who visibly, noticeably, he was old inner circle guy. He was right in the inner circle, part of the whole thing. And he just up and left. Caused kind of a stir amongst a few people, but he just up and left, moved to Santa Cruz, and started his own thing on the internet, and private email, and a couple of Facebook groups, and a Yahoo group, and he started doing, Carlos Duar, although he killed off the persona, the name that he hung on to for several years, and decided to go by his real name. And he posted up on Non-Duality Salon for a couple of years. Did you ever go to Non-Duality Salon? Yahoo group? Yeah. Anyway, so, and I followed him just like I followed Jan, because he has a way with the word. He has a way with the word. And I knew what his background was because he revealed it. He came up through Gurdjieff like everybody. He found Jan Cox and left the rest behind. And then he stayed completely involved and up to speed with Jan until he decided, although he didn't ever say this, the effect was, until he decided it's time to leave. And he left. No animosity, no ill will, nobody complained. Nobody gave him a hard time about it because a lot of other people left. I mean, I know 5 or 10 people that in my short tenure left. And it was just surprising and shocking, and you know how it goes. When the oldsters start leaving, the inner circle starts leaving, it causes the newbies to scratch their head. Oh, you know what I mean? But could they ever grok why they left?
Right. Not
really. Not until they got to a point where, I mean, like I say, this is a I was going to say 100-yard dash in 1 second, or a 4-minute mile in 1 minute. This is the high-speed train to where you are able to get to. There's a place you're able to get to before you shuffle off this mortal coil, and it's true for everyone. There's a place you're able to get to. It's part of being born into a human being with a brain that can learn a language. And there's a thing that brain can do naturally. It's part of the genetics to open up a cavity, a space in the brain, and illuminate from there. Make that part the illuminated being. The pineal gland, has often been called the center of consciousness or whatever. But it's simply, you know how to get there on your own. You don't need impetus. You don't need any help. You can just go there anytime you want. In other words, you can just open your mouth on purpose, and without any forethought or pre-thinking about it or trying to remember anything, you just start creating new thought or new teaching for you. For you, it's yours. It's new for you. And if it's new for you, it's new for everybody. I mean, they may think that they're hearing what they've heard before, but that's not the same thing. It's new for you because you never heard it before. You're not repeating anything Gurdjieff ever said, or some method or trick that Gurdjieff used. You're not repeating it. You came up with a new one. So, hearkening back to 5 minutes ago when you were giving me several reasons, several things that you've gotten from Jan, saying no, the two voices, these various metaphors or models or, ways to view our inner world. I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying, how about don't recall any of those to yourself ever again, to anybody. Stop remembering. Try to figure out how to come up with some new ones. Brand new. Never heard before by you or anybody. Or maybe somebody's already heard it because they did the same thing you're trying to do and they came up with it too. Because there are a few things that are similar on the path to illuminating that inner room. Because it's what the brain does. The brain knows how to learn a language. The brain knows how to form words into sentences that are coherent. You learned that by the time you were 4 years old. You didn't do anything, right? It learned it. by
Good like that phrase you just spoke, inner room. That was a good one.
well, I actually said inner room with an R, but you know, if that's what you just said, it sounded like you said loom.
I did.
Okay, well, it works for me. The point being, our brains, genetically speaking, due to that long history behind us, have the ability to become conscious in one lifetime. That's a given. The question is, do you have to be told by somebody to get it started? Yes, you do. 99 times out of 100, yes, you do. One person may hit on it on his own, but you know, let's just go with the other. Most all people need to be, let's say, because humans are suggestible. I suggest to you, Fred, that you're asleep now, although you think you're walking around unconscious and alert. I suggest to you that in fact you're actually just a little bit above dream sleep, just a little bit above dream sleep, except that while you're walking around conscious, you're not fully conscious. Huh? He goes, huh? What do you mean I'm fully conscious? No, you're not. If you can look into what I'm just telling you, that may light a fire on the kindling that's already in you. There's kindling already in you. I'm lighting the fire by telling you this. And now, what does he do? Does he begin to get illuminated therein? Right there? Where he goes, you know what happened when you first read Search of the Miraculous. I sure do. That's the first book I really got that hit me the right way. Can Dan Muir remember sitting in the chair when I read it? Because it's that big of a deal in that something lit up in you, and that has been there all along. It was there before, and then he reminded me of it by reading, and I never lost the realization that as conscious and awake as you think you are right now, you're still virtually, comparatively, relatively sound asleep. You're just able to walk around. You have control of your muscles. But while you're in bed, you were as conscious as you were now, except you lost the ability, many of the abilities you have sitting in your chair right now. You know, that's by virtue of being in the second state. Get into the third state, or so it goes, right? You get into a higher state, and now you're discovering new things that you never even imagined were possible back in the second state. Ways that you could just move an arm or turn your head or choose a word, and it doesn't put you immediately to sleep. It keeps you at the high level of alertness that you were trying to maintain. So how do you remain conscious all day long and never fall back to sleep? Well, it looks to me like you've got to learn how to play an instrument, a violin, concerto, concert pianist, somebody that has that high level of skill. You know, Bach, conscious being. Who can doubt it? Who can doubt that he was a conscious being? I mean, he may have a fucked up life and a family life, but how could you write that shit? The stuff didn't just happen. There was some consciousness at work here to pull all of that together into a coherent thread and then put it out into the world where it is still as powerful today as it was then. I mean, it has the same power today as it did then, and to enlighten people. They don't even know why, but they got to be there. They've got to hear it. Once they've heard it, they cannot not hear it. I mean, you don't want to walk away from Bach or Mozart or any of these greats, or Rembrandt or whomever. You don't want to walk away from that shit and go, oh, that's nothing, that's shit. Nobody ever has that thought. They look at that kind of stuff and listen to that kind of stuff and they go, geez, I'm impressed. I mean, if only I could do that. Everybody thinks that. If only I had the being to be able to, what kind of an interesting life might that be if I had the being to do what some of these greats before me have done, or Jan Cox even, or George Gurdjieff even, How did he do it? It's not sitting in the audience going, wow, this is an interesting meeting. Okay, fine, yeah, it is. But how is he doing what he's doing? Do you have any idea?
That's exactly the point that I'm at right now as far as the experience factor. Unless you do it, unless you experience it, unless it's part of your experience, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, sitting in a room and listening to words is nothing, right? Right.
Right. And the experiencing a great meeting is one thing. Doing it yourself is at a higher level than being 100% enraptured by the presence of Jan Cox actually in the room. You're in the second row and your eyes and ears are peeled and you're taking in the whole room, and the whole room almost seems still, and there's only one thing going on, and that's just sounds. That's all that's going on. You walk out of the cacophonous world, you step into the spaceship, as it were, you sit down in your chair, and now launch. 8 o'clock, we launch. And we're going to a parallel universe, as it were. And the parallel universe exists in your own inner world. That's where we went, night after night after night. And can't say it's the same parallel world in the various heads in the room, but the various heads in the room were moving to, let's say, degrees of consciousness, different degrees of consciousness, such that they were, you listen to the people laughing in the room, right? You hear it all the time.
Right.
The laughter, that's a big one. That there, if you could turn off all the laughter, turn all that off, and just be left with Jan talking, it'd be a different meeting and you'd pick up different stuff. And it would be much less than what you're picking up. The fact that you had, okay, good, you got that. Now, add this. You're actually sitting in the room. Okay, you've added that, right? That's a third level. In fact, you could go all the way back to the beginning. You read a transcript. That's one thing. And it's not even a verbatim transcript. You read a transcript of the meeting, and all the cool ideas are transcribed, as it were, but not verbatim. That's one level.
Right.
The next level is a absolute verbatim transcript. But what you're missing are the pauses and the ahims, because you can't transcribe that well. It just doesn't work.
You can't transcribe it fast enough. I've tried. Actually.
Well, no, it's not so much that. I'm not talking about the speed of. I'm not talking about the speech to text. Dragon. Speech to text writer. It can do it, but you're still. That's only this. That's first. You've got the.
You don't get the nuances.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's the third level that you've got a verbatim transcript, but you're still missing a ton, okay? And I'm going to fill it in. So now that's the third level. Now the fourth level is you're in the room. You're in the room. That's the fourth level. Same meeting. You got first was the transcript. It was not verbatim. Then there was the verbatim, and then there was the one-to-one perfect transcription of the whole thing. And then you're in the room, sitting there in the chair, wherever you happen to take that position that evening. And what's going on in the room? You got 75 or 100 people in the room, surrounding you, surrounding you. And it's dark in the room. It's always dark in the room, and only the stage is lit, and there's only one person in the frame. You only ever saw one person in the frame, and you only saw the stage. And it'd be the same face every single time. Your position in relation to him would change because you take different seats for whatever reason. And you have different functions when you're in the room. Maybe you're a newbie and you want to be on the front row or the back row to blend in. You know what I mean? So that's a higher level. You're getting much more, but you're still not getting shit. I mean, think about it. Think about it. Just because you're in the room doesn't mean you're picking up any more than the guy that read the transcript, the first level. You're not picking up any more because you're not capable of doing it. Your senses are too fragmented. They're not working in unison. You're not a finely tuned machine or instrument that can be played by the maestro who is playing you. So it would take years of being in the room and trying to do this. The real work was not figuring out what he was talking about. It was being present when he spoke about it. That's all. Just be present and then keep your little mouth shut and your brain shut while you're there. Don't have any random thoughts when it's going on, and don't have any random thoughts when it's all over. Just come in, sit down, pay attention, take it all in. It's a long meal. And when it's over, 90% of the people would leave after the meeting, right after the meeting, 90%. 10%, the inner circle, right? Because they all knew each other, so, that's what we do, right? I don't mean me necessarily when I say we, but that's what the inner circle do. They kind of hang around and pair up or triple up or go have a coffee or whatever it is and sort of wind down. I went to many of those. Nobody ever mentioned a word, not ever. It was verboten, and we all knew it. You just don't talk about anything regarding the meeting. None of it. Nor when you get home later that night or tomorrow while you're, going to work. You don't chat up your cellmate and tell them about this great place you go to, and boy, you ought to try it, Fred. No, you don't do that. You don't try to spread the word, spread the teaching to, those ordinary people. They can't find...
Wait. Let's just stop here for a minute. I'm just trying to digest what you're trying to tell me.
Well, I'm not saying it as fact. I'm saying it as this. It's all coming from me, okay? Everything I say is my words and unless I preface it with Jan told us to shut up, and he did, and never talk about it and think about it after the meeting. He did. But anything else I might say that is confusing, forget it. It doesn't matter. It's coming from me. This is how I take what's going on. That once you get into the meeting proper, once you found the actual place where this stuff went on, then your time, let's say, was counted. The old, once you find Gurdjieff's teaching, then your time is counted. So, kind of the same thing. You find the room, and now you're on a roller coaster ride, whereas before you were on a, what's that, the moving walkway in an airport. Your whole life has been on a moving walkway at an airport. All life, on a walkway in the airport. You know those things. Not even an escalator, just a move. Okay, so finally you find one door in the airport. This is a galaxial airport, okay? This is a transplanetary airport.
Transgalactic airport.
Okay, all right. So you're on these walking ways, right? You can't deviate from the walking way. You'll run into a guardrail. Okay? So this is life on Earth. And then everybody has the opportunity to go find one of these doors. I found it, and other people found it. They opened the door, and it was like opening up into the starry, starry sky. And they sat down, and God started speaking, quote unquote. God started speaking. You're dumbstruck. You're not talking. You're not thinking. You're not doing it. You're like an open vessel, and you get filled up. It's a religious, spiritual experience. You make it so. You make it that. It's not that it is. Jan Cox was no guru or God on earth. I elevated the whole process to that level. I mentioned this every single time I was at a hangout. I mean, I drilled it to the point that it pissed off people like Ned and various other people. You know, I said you need to come to these hangouts. Back then, I still think it's true. You need to come to these hangouts where we talk about these higher matters, whatever. Naked as a jaybird, naked as a baby. Leave your entire personality and history behind. You don't know shit from Shinola about anything. You came here to be filled up by the presence of consciousness. And I continue to say, and always did say, back in those days even, that I grant you that status. I got no complaint. You want to be a man number 7, that's fine with me. Let's all be men number 7. I'm not going to argue with you. You know, if you're a man number 7, that works for me, because all we are the potential carriers of the Word, being that which filled us up when we were a baby. The Word which filled us up via our parents into the baby that has a brain. It hears all this shit, it puts it all together, and by the time you're 3 and 4 years old, you're already speaking coherent sentences. No baby did that. That happened. And all the rest of the time for the next 60 years, the result of who you are today, it happened. You can't ascribe any consciousness to it at all. All you can do is just feel like you can. And you can tell a story like you can. But the fact is, you didn't make any conscious decisions to be at this meeting today until I reached out to you. Okay? Now, I'm not, saying I'm anything special. I didn't think about it either. It's just, I'm on my little walking railway in the airport, and suddenly it turned right, and I went to Steve's chat window, and I clicked on the little video button, and that got us online. Yeah, it's out of pattern for both of us. And I had nothing to say. I have nothing to impart, because it's all we ever do. When two humans get together, I even said this in Hangouts, because I remember really, these things are old ideas. When you get in the presence of another person who can speak your language, and you can hear what they say and they can hear what you say, that is a supremely spiritual experience. People don't generally take it that way because they can't elevate that experience to that level. I can. And you know what I mean? It's not an ordinary thing to have two people. It doesn't happen with apes, and it doesn't happen with bears. Bears communicate, yeah, but they're communicating about 3 or 4 different things, and that's it. 3 or 4. Food, sex, danger, fear, whatever. Humans, on the other hand, because they have a language now, even at long distance, when they speak to another human, they just created a spiritual connection. They created that spiritual connection now, and they become receptacles of the Word. The Word. In our case, it's English. We are nothing more. I'll tell you, and you can agree to this, if we did not get on the phone today, neither one of us would have had any of these thoughts. Not on your own. None of these thoughts that occurred today could have occurred without this, I call it a conscious connection, a spiritual connection, which, since we are capable receptors of the Word is part of the higher light, the upper light, the Word, and it descends upon this lower level, and it enlightens all those who are capable of receiving it, period, end of story. There's nothing else to say. It's just the light enlightening the darkness. And internally, we are dark, and we become enlightened. Not by anything we did. I didn't find Jan Cox's room and then realize that room is in my head. just like it's in everybody else's head. Nobody told me that, but you realize it. You basically, you realize what's going on. He's not talking to me and us. We are listening to the Word. That's more a precise way of describing any meeting. We are experiencing, through our reception of it, the Word. And we don't even know what is being... Huh?
You put it well.
Well, it's, I don't know. All I know is it comes out of you. Whatever you're about to say, at any moment, it comes out of you. It's not like you have to think it up or figure out what you're going to say, right? It just, you don't know what you're going to say next. But what you can do, unlike, Jan didn't know what he was going to say next. He didn't know what he was going to say next. But it happened, didn't it? Amazingly. He didn't know what he was going to say next, and yet just-in-time thinking, which he knows how to do, simply means all I got to do is grab the microphone with an intention to speak the word and let my jaw go slack, let my brain go slack, and because I've done the prerequisite job, I've got the kindling in my brain lit, it's already lit, I just lit a match to it 25 years ago, so it's already lit. Now all I got to do to create a bonfire and enlighten the whole room, this is Jan thinking, Jan talking, all I got to do is show up and feed the bonfire. What is he feeding the bonfire? It's very simple. Think about it. What is going on in the presence of a meeting? Think about it. You can even answer this, not to my satisfaction, but to your own. It's not a question. The answer is not answering a question. The answer is a realization of what did Bill just ask me? Oh, I get it. I don't even have to say what it is because I know what it is. In fact, I might not even say it so I can keep what I just realized. What is going on in a meeting with Jan Cox? A physical meeting. What is going on? When people show up from out there in the unreal world, they show up, they congregate in a closed space, they sit there, they self-remember to get conscious, they open up their receptacle, and then somebody apparently who's more enlightened, there's more light coming from him, he is now channeling the word of life on it. Life is being channeled through Jan into the room, and all those who are there have the opportunity to perceive it in full, not in part, in full. And the only way it becomes in part or just barely, it's the whole meal is given to you on your table. And just because you only eat the salad, that's your fault, okay? But there was an 8-course meal here, and it was every night.
Right. Those with the ears to hear and the eyes to see.
Yeah, right. And those that do picked up the whole thing, and they didn't have to figure it out later and write about it. They wouldn't dare do that because that tears it down. You got the whole building in you that evening, and then for the rest of the 2 days, waiting for the next meeting, you proceed to tear it all down and have to start from scratch on the next meeting. That's why he said, shut up. Don't think about it. Just take it in while you're here and then leave it alone. Close the door behind you. Go back into your personality and live your life. And always you're trying to be awake, but you're not trying to, you're not trying to do anything. You're just letting yourself be. And, there's many ways you can say that and twist the words so that it comes out differently, but it kind of all amounts to the same thing. We're not responsible for our level of being until a certain point in time. When somebody decides to leave Jan Cox, that's something. That's a big deal. Bob Moorer, who was Carlos Dwa, he was there for 25 years. Right in the circle of friends, you know what I mean? Right in the thick of things. And then suddenly, he just left. And you have to wonder, why? Is there something going on here that I'm asking why, and that I don't see it instantly? And I didn't see it for a long time. And I'm not saying I know the answer, especially. Maybe he lost his work. That's another possibility, right? Lost his work. That's why most people leave. They lose it. But what about those that didn't lose it? And there was many who didn't. In Atlanta, they left while they were in Atlanta, and they didn't move away, and they didn't badmouth anything, and they still came to weekend and monthly and quarterly meetings, or not meetings, but parties and gatherings. They would still come to the gatherings, perfect friends, you see what I'm saying? But they did not come to meetings anymore. Why? What happened? And I'm not asking you, I'm just saying that's a question. And it's a crucial question because it's very individually and personally relevant. What is it going to take you to live? I mean, do you even have a chance? I mean, do you even have the potential to be able to? Because that's the goal here. Do you even have are you building the ability to leave in good standing of your own free will, or are you already a caged being? Are you already a caged bird? And many people become caged birds, no longer able to fly except inside the cage. And they fly all around this cage, and in the cage is a map of their city, and they know all the routes to the various locations in their city behind the walls of the cage, and they think they're a free bird. And there's nobody in there to tell them they're not. Huh? But they're just as caged and programmed. Their minds are programmed, and their ability to flight is crippled. Their wings are shortened, and they don't even realize they're flying 5 inches off the ground when they could be, a rocket boosted eagle soaring into other cosmoses. Whatever, I mean, you can play games with the symbology and the metaphors, but so this is what I kind of do. That's why I don't do it much, because it's too easy to just talk too much, and nobody who's hearing is going to remember any of it unless they're taping the meeting, and it doesn't matter to them anyway, because they got to come to it on their own, through their own efforts. They got to come to their own understandings. So the next time they get in front of another human, they're only telling their own story, nobody else. Why did Jan talk so much? See, that's another question. I mean, if you're not supposed to talk so much, he who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. I mean, if that's a true statement, to whom was he referring? He certainly wasn't talking, or maybe he was referring to Jan Cox himself, who did 3,367 meetings over the course of 30 some odd years. 3,367 meetings, never really missing one evening. I mean, he sometimes went one per week, and then it was twice a week, and then it was 3 times per week, up till the very end. It was still 3 times per week, and he never missed a meeting unless he was deathly ill. Who would do that? What could possibly be the motivation for one to? Was he getting rich? No, he wasn't getting rich. All the payments from the people were simply to pay for the rental of the room and the snacks, and maybe some spending money for jam. He wasn't getting rich, so that wasn't the reason. Feedback from people giggling in the room, is that a good enough reason to keep doing this? And they're all here. Haven't I taught these people how to leave yet? You can imagine, I do, how his heart would just leap, in joy when he found out that John Marcus was leaving. who was number 2, okay, number 3 for 30 years. When he found out John Marcus had decided to leave, he must have just been happy as hell that one of his nearest and dearest escaped of his own free will. He wasn't kicked out. He woke up, and now he could walk on his own, free. And you got to consider this. I mean, as a possibility. The longer you stay with Jan, the harder it becomes, because you're giving yourself feedback on the meetings to such a high degree. It's not that you've got to find fault with Jan to leave. Hardly. You've got to realize you're not hearing anything new anymore. That you're coming up with better stuff than he is. You're actually coming up with it in your own real-time outpouring. You don't need to take anything in anymore. In fact, you don't want to take anything anymore. You don't want to take in anything anymore. You don't want to read anymore. You don't want to listen to tapes and videos anymore. You just want to be self-contained and let the fire burn hotter and hotter and hotter until you discover how to, as it were, start outpouring it. And you may outpour it into artistic endeavors or whatever, but you begin, the trend reverses. Instead of being...
I'm following you. I'm actually following you, and I want to interrupt you.
Yeah. Just raise your voice. That's how to do it.
I want to interrupt you just for a moment, because I totally understand the thread that you're following there. And I just want to say that there's always that, there's not always that. It baffles me, the paradox. If you can't live with paradox, if you can't stand on the head of a pin or paradox, there's nothing else for you. To me, this teaching can be said without prejudice. It has to be put out there, but it has to be put out there without any thought of anyone comprehending it. And that's the joy of some of this, is that I'm not interested in converting you, my friend, but here it is. I'm just going to lay it on the plate. The plate is here for you to feast, for you to understand that this is food. This is food for you. You want to have some food? Dig in. Eat up. Eat big, little feller. Make you grow. Someone said. But I'll tell you this. Nothing impresses me more than the modesty of the man. The modesty of the man shines through in so many ways. I'm not saying it's something to follow. Just saying it's something to look at. There it is. Put it on your plate. Can you see that this is food? It is food. So, then what do you do with it? You present it to other people. You say, okay, I got the food. I think you might, in fact, be nourished by it. Yeah, I'm doing that. I think it's working for a kind of school. Am I doing it in the proper way? I don't know. If I'm doing it in the proper way, just doing it in my way. Transcripts. That's another good question. Really great question. How do you encapsulate another man's thought? Incredibly interesting process for me. I don't know, it's kind of a journalism thing in some respects, because you're taking notes on someone else's thoughts, you're writing down your words, you're trying, perhaps, if you're a good journalist, to encapsulate gestures, innuendos, visuals, hearing. If I was in the room, I'd tell you what it smells like.
Hey, listen, I'm not criticizing you or anybody. I'm speaking only from my point of view about do's and not do's. I have a lot of do's and a lot of not do's, and I'm simply telling you my perspective on what is going on, but it shouldn't have, and it doesn't need to have any, it doesn't need to reflect on you. And I'm not trying to say you got to change. Do whatever you want to do. I'm just trying to describe what I think is going on with it. Is get the whole thing as soon as you're able. That's all. Get the whole thing as soon as you're able. All he's doing now is speaking around the edges. He's already told the whole story. Of course, you're only on, you said 150. Wait till you get to 3,000, okay? I guess if you want to, if you've got that much life left in you, I would not do it. I would just give up on that, because it's going to take too long. It's just, and then you weren't there, so you're working at a deficit in that you don't have the ability to time travel. If you had the ability to time travel, you could go back to 87 and pick up and get on the roller coaster. All that's going on now is the after images, which is what they are, after images of an event that took 30 years to take place. And all you can get now, it's like a supernova going nova. Okay? The whole Jan experience over 30 years was simply a star going supernova. And the people that can know that there was a star that went supernova, namely us, 5 billion years removed, through our telescopes, and watching YouTube videos of a star going supernova, and singing, they're even able now to pick up sounds, although they're not hearing. It's not so much they're picking up the sounds, they're picking up the frequencies of vibrations in the light. So they can say, and have been saying, that when you look out through the Hubble back 10 billion years and see some major galactic cosmic event, there's sounds associated with it, just as there's light associated with it, based upon the frequencies of vibrations they're now able to pick up. So, you could say, there's no reason not to. Jan Cox was a star who over the next 35 years went supernova. That 35-year thing is a galactic event. And we, who live beyond his, what are you doing? Who lived beyond his death, and who did not meet him, were never there, the best we're able to do is pick up after images. YouTubes are not even close. They are so far removed. You might as well just read transcripts. Oh yeah, you can convince yourself otherwise, Steve. I know you can. I know you do. And I know and I'm not trying to talk you out of anything. See it for yourself or don't see it. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. You're going to do whatever you're going to do anyway. I'm just telling you my story because that's where I came to. The videos are great. They are, I agree. I love them. I don't watch them, but I love them because I was in the room. So what am I going to do? I was in the room. Now I'm going to watch a video of it? Why would I do that? He brought everything to every meeting. Have you gotten that notion yet? He brings everything up to that evening, that date. He brings everything that's ever gone down before into each meeting. So you can say with a clear mind, if you can realize it, he's not bringing anything new into the room in this meeting. If you think he is, you're missing something. He's basically just adding more fuel to what's already a bonfire. What's new? The fuel that got thrown on the bonfire? Yeah, the bonfire is bigger, but it was already big enough. Everybody in the room was already men number 7. They're already men number 7. What do men number 7 need to be going to meetings for? Think about it. What's the point? Entertainment? Well, maybe, Do you think men number 7 sit around and talk about Jan Cox ideas? Come on, think about it. What? No. The answer is no. They don't do that. There's no need to do it. Because they're already, fully themselves. They're not going to get more conscious because we have a new get together. However, why would men number 7 or even men number 4? Why would men number 4 start a Skype meeting, have a Skype meeting, and just sit around and chit chat? Why are we doing this? What do you think? What do you think is the reason the cosmic, right down at the seeing what's actually going on here? Why are we doing this today? Remember, I used to ask that all the time in the hangout. It was extremely important to me. Nobody else. They got pissed off. Remember how they used to get pissed off? Why did you come here tonight? Was it just entertainment? Did you come here to be entertained? And I'm not speaking to you. I'm saying the notion. Why did you come here tonight, Fred, sitting out in the meeting? Jan would ask under his breath. Why did you come? Why did you come? Pointing with his eyes at that person and that person and that person as he looks all around the room every single evening. He'd make eye contact with everybody. And he was asking them the same question. Are you still here? I mean, haven't you figured this out yet? Jesus Christ, I bring you the whole thing every night, and you're still coming back for more, you glutton, you greedy glutton? I mean, look at it from the point of view of the logic. Okay? It's not a criticism of anybody. It's a logical framework around which you can see more clearly as to what is going on when two people who are as conscious as we are, second state, you know what second state is, so as conscious as ordinary humanity. What is going on when people get together and then talk about their big ideas? What is actually going on? Not what they say is going on, because they don't know what's going on. But what is actually going on in a cosmic sense? Think about it without using words. Feel about it without using any particular emotions. Sense it. What is going on with the fact that humanity, all 7 billion of us, have a mother tongue, and from the moment we are able to utilize it to any certain degree, till the moment we die, unless we lose the capacity to speak. We spend the rest of our lives just dancing around the maypole, telling stories, talking, all around the globe for our whole entire lives, never moving 1 inch up higher than where we were when we started. Are you smoking dope? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I thought you kicked all that shit. See, you gotta go cold turkey on that if you want to get your coherence back. It's really hard to be deep and coherent when you're stoned, as I learned, and had to go cold turkey, only then to find out, Jesus Christ, being straight or unhigh is higher than being stoned. Duh. I mean, how come it took me so long to figure that one out? But this is a big deal when you put two people in a room who want to be more conscious, or say they do. Why do they want to be more conscious? I mean, they're talking. Isn't that good enough? You can understand everything that Jan says when you hear it on an MP3 file. So why do you need the video? You really think you're picking up nuances that are clarifying something? Really? Elaborate for us. And then you will elaborate, and what do they call that? People who are liberals only listen to CNN and MSNBC because of the self-reinforcing nature of that which is spoken on CNN and MSNBC. They're already predisposed to think in that way because they've been programmed to think in that way by those channels. And so whenever they go back to those channels, like they do all day long, every night, they keep being reinforced in their thinking that it's, there's a term for that type of reinforcement. They go to the channels that reinforce their own beliefs. And that's why Fox viewers go to Fox, because Tucker and Hannity and Laura Ingraham reinforce their own beliefs. So we're not becoming less programmed and less smart, or we're not becoming less programmed and more smart by watching Fox. We are becoming more programmed and less intelligent by watching our favorite channels. It's only when you break out of that programming and, instead of watching JANCOX TV, start watching STEVE SWARTZ TV. Maybe start a blog, Steve. Maybe start a blog and then publish it. Publish each article.
I'm actually curious, so you don't smoke dope?
Oh, you mean anymore? I certainly did, but we don't have legality here, so it's really hard to get. And I ran out a long time ago, so and then
You ran out, so
I ran out about 4 years ago.
Available, I do, right?
Huh?
So what are you saying?
It's not legal in Florida. It's not legal, and I don't go out looking for people to sell it to me. So I basically...
That's a wise choice. I will say that. But what the hell was your comment about anyone else smoking marijuana?
Huh?
I'm just wondering what your condemnation of me on
I'm not. I already told you. I've already clarified my position here. I'm not talking about you per se. I'm talking about the prototype person, the people who.
Well, yeah.
I'm not talking about you per se. I'm talking about people in general, and I'm only using that which you have indicated as being examples of the thing that I find people doing. They reinforce their belief system by continuing to go back to that which reinforces their belief system. Okay? And what I say, not pointing at you, pointing fingers at you, because you're going to do whatever you're going to do anyway. I don't want you to change anything. But I'm saying there's another point of view to take. The other point of view to take is finding a teaching is a big deal. The sooner you can escape willfully with no ill will, no animosity, and begin to tell your own story, the better. That's all I've said during the whole discussion here, is the sooner one can. That's why I said how how his heart must have leapt when John Marcus left.
Okay, you have been consistent on that line. You have actually followed that line for quite a long time. I've seen you say that.
And I'm certainly not going to go. I'm certainly not going to change my mind now. The most important thing in the world is to create your own story. Everything else is just biding your time, and you could say you're wasting your time. You could say, no, you're just practicing the instrument. Yeah, okay, it's all well and good. First, you got to learn how to play the piano before you can compose for the piano. That's generally the way people think. You've got to learn how to play the violin, virtuoso violin, in order to be able to compose for the violin. Okay, how about this? Until you learn how to tune and play the human instrument, which is multi-centered being with the capacity for multiple levels of consciousness that can be moved at will. Until you learn to play that instrument, you cannot leave Jan Cox or anybody else, because Jan Cox is programming you. But now add this to it. Add this to it. Okay? For a person who finds Jan Cox physical personage and goes to a meeting and learns thereby, he is, I will say it and other people will argue, he is in a much better position to achieve the aim of self-realization than someone who finds it after the fact only in the form of books. Now, you can argue with that all you want. I'm not saying it's a fact. It's a fact for me because I was there. Before, when I only got VHS tapes, which were grainy and shitty, and really a horrible way to find out about Jan for 3 years, just listening to VHS tapes. I was making all the tapes for the people in LA. So what would happen is they would send from Atlanta, they'd send a tape to the LA group, and there was about 25, and I would take the tape, which when it was received, and turn it around in one day and bring it back to the next meeting so that everybody then could share it in the room over a TV set. So I was making a tremendous amount of effort, and not only did I make tapes, video VHS tapes, I would transcribe 3 MP3s of that hour meeting on video VHS, 1 MP3 for my file, and 2 that went up to 2 other centers, because I just could not handle the workload of the VHS tapes everywhere, so I just did it for LA. But so I sent these MP3s everywhere. So I was getting, just a huge hit every single night, man. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was involved in creating the shit for the people in LA and the people in Seattle, the people in San Francisco, and for 3 years before going to Atlanta. And then I didn't have to do that anymore. I got to experience the room for myself. And it was like, I tell you, Steve, you know this true, just hear it. Showing up at the first meeting on December 27th, I guess it was, 1987, it was just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it instantly changed me. And it wasn't for the worse, it was for the better, because
Yep.
then I got to sit in the room when the cosmic experience was being communicated, when life was
Yep.
speaking to the room, and everybody could hear life speaking through Jan to us, and they were taking it in to the best degree that they were capable of, and reacting to it with movements in their chairs, shifts of their postures, smiles on their faces, giggles in the
Now you're
room.
talking.
And he's up front taking it all in. Now here's what I said earlier. How does he feed the fire? His own fire that he comes every night at 8 o'clock? He takes in the room.
Yep.
He's taking in the room and now telling you what's going on in the room as he's talking, telling them what is going on in the room.
Yeah.
It's like in code.
Yeah. You're absolutely, totally true.
Of course. Of
course.
course. And there's nothing to it. It's no big realization. What it is basically, more than anything else, is the first time you go to a rock concert, your mind is blown and you don't even know why. But it was. The next time you go to a Brandenburg Concerto live on a concert stage, your mind is blown and you don't really even actually know why. And then all these many thousands of times your mind has been blown and you didn't know why. Now you're beginning to find out why. And then you find out, oh, wait a minute. This is not a big deal. This is not as big a deal as I thought it was. The reason my mind was blown is because I thought it was a big deal, because I've never experienced it personally before. But now you're able to experience it personally on command. And then you realize, wait a minute, what's been happening here is the instrument has been completed by virtue of being born, and now it's been tuned and trained. Now I can play my instrument, and I can just kind of let it go on overdrive. The machine, you wake up in the morning, and the machine is just working at 100% efficiency, and you don't even need to do anything about it. You're just operating at full efficiency, whatever that means. And you don't want to try to describe it, because then you belittle sort of what's going on here. But you're just operating like a normal human being who's conscious and awake all the time. You don't fall back asleep. You have moments, but you just instantly come back to yourself. And anyway, I don't want to go on to that because it sounds boring. So, hey,
I'll tell you what.
yeah, let's do it. It's, 340 there or 440?
Well, it's 5:40 where I am.
Oh, really? You're only 2 hours different. Okay, so where are you actually? Idaho?
All right, I'm in Steve Gage's old place.
Boise, Idaho?
Yep.
So, oh, really? I didn't know. Okay, well, maybe one day we'll talk about it, but not today. It's too bad about Stevie. So, I'll tell you what,
I can talk about Steve anytime you like.
yeah, well, not today. Not today.
All right. I like the not today. Steve doesn't have a no.
Yeah.
But,
I don't need the gossip. I don't need to play gossip with you. All I knew is only thing I heard was he went out to walk his dog, he fell, banged his head, and was dead. That's all Jill told me, and that's all I asked. So, and then I heard, she told me later, about a month later, she said, oh, by the way, did you hear Jim Crow died? And I said, well, okay. And that was the end of that, because what else are you going to say? And, hey, I never met him. He was a decent sort. So I'm going to hang up now because my head is pounding because I've been, talking too much. I always say I'm not gonna do this, but I always end up doing it. And it's always good to find people that are more active and assertive than I am, because that gives me a chance to, shut up and listen. But it's
I'll tell you
really,
what, I could be more assertive any day you like, but
Yeah.
it was nice to hear you be assertive today. And I thank you for the conversation. You are really a very remarkable human being, and I enjoy.
no, Steve, don't go there. All we did was have a conversation about that which we both already know. We already kind of understand this shit. It's just who's going to be the mouthpiece this evening, which is why Jan rose to his position. When the Friends were working together in the early 80s, 79, 78, he was simply the one who was more at ease speaking off the cuff, and just
Right.
talking impromptu, and keeping and coherent enough. That's very important. You can't be stuttering. You just got to overcome this inner confusion, is what it is. The inability to say what it is you're trying to say with no shame, no guilt, no apparent confusion. You don't care if they think you're right or wrong. You know what's right. That's what you just said. And you said exactly what you wanted to say, and you're done. And then you can move on to the next point. And you want to make a point, and then make another point, and then make another point. And hopefully all the points are at least available to local recent memory, so that eventually somebody at the other end can go, wait a minute, he talked about 5 or 6 or 10 different things. What were they? Let me try to remember what those 10 things were. And then you suddenly grok all 10, and you go, wow, this was a bigger meeting than even I thought it was, And it only took you 30 seconds to realize that, maybe after the fact. And then
Let me help you out.
Yeah.
Let me help you out.
Yeah.
Just right where you are, and I'm good with what we've done as far as working today, okay?
Okay,
I'm glad.
should we hang up and do it maybe another time sometime, whatever?
Yeah, I would enjoy that.
Okay, I always, as I did in the Hangouts, and I still have them all, make a MP3 file of every meeting. I don't often re-listen to them, but you never know what's going to come out at a meeting. You never know. And I always surprise the shit out of myself, because I don't think about this stuff ever. I mean, do you realize or don't realize, I don't talk during the week. Zip. I don't talk to anybody during the week unless I'm at a place where I need to talk. Like, how much does this thing cost? Okay, fine. And that's about it. Or if I meet some person in my condo building in the hallway, I will do the obligatory chit-chat with the people that I like, and then I'll just sort of wave hi and then walk on for the people that I don't really know.
What I'm totally understanding now is the lateral expansion angle on what we're doing. Okay, so I'm really appreciative of the conversation today, and I want you to know I'm looking forward to another chance to talk with you.
Yeah, well, let's stay on good terms, because there's other people too. There's other people who have massive insight, as you know, and there's no problem with, although multiple faces in the room often can be a little bit unwieldy, as you well know, from the Hangouts. And but you know Jill, I know Becky. I don't know if you've ever talked to Becky. I haven't talked to Jill that much. All she seemed to want to do is political stuff.
Becky Brooks.
Yeah. We've talked about 10 times, and she's deeper than I am, but not as spacey. I'm much more spacey than she is, and but she's an artist. She's a high level artiste. Okay, so her perspective on Jan is she blows my mind, and I've been put in my place more than once, and had to kind of come back to her.
I don't want to gossip, with you, but I will say this about the people I've met in the group or whatever. Is Deborah Ross strikes me as someone that resonates with me.
Oh yeah, right, sure, of course. And Derek too, probably. Derek, if you
Yeah, Derek too.
if
Yeah.
you've read any of his stuff.
Not so much Rick Moser.
Who? Not Moser, right? Moser is, yeah, a tough one. There's really, see, that's surprising how few people, here we've got Atlanta, probably got 60 or 70 people who are in the group who still live there. They're not on these groups. Who knows what, I don't even know what they're doing, and I dare not ask anybody because for fear of, looking like an idiot. Because this is well known why they don't do it. And yet I have a curiosity in me that kind of would like to know, well, why doesn't Calvin do it? I mean, Calvin and John Marcus were, I mean, there are some real geniuses around. I mean, I felt like a teeny little insect while I was in Atlanta. I mean, not even a newbie. I had not even risen to the, to the sole of their feet. And here these guys were 7 and 8 feet tall. And I felt tiny and stupid and amazed and awestruck. And it really, I did not grow out of it, really. That's kind of why I left. I mean, I was shamed to leave. Shamed into leaving. And it was only when I got away from it that I realized what the experience meant or was for me. And I never felt bad about my experience, but I just was so far behind. They were already 10 or 13 years into this, and there was a very tight clique, about 25 people, 25 people that were joined at the hip and the forehead. They were just eye to eye, ear to ear, tongue to tongue. It wasn't just Jan Cox that I was dealing with. It was a being of 25 conscious beings that were all on fire. And here I was, not even an ember. I mean, I was not even a match head, in comparison. So they just blotted out the whole room. I couldn't rise up into that, and because I have a passive personality in general, and but be that as it may.
Hey, bud, let's call it a day.
Yeah.
We had a really good conversation as far as I'm concerned.
Well, as I said, I make an MP3, and if you have any thoughts on that matter, let me know later. Don't let me know now, but let me know later if you have a mind to acquiring the MP3 for whatever purpose. Later.
All right.
Later.
I will, and you have a good night, sir.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy. I'm glad we did it. Talk to you later. Okay, how do I get out of here? I'm gone.